3 weeks have passed since this Skarner rework, and it's safe to say I have opinions on it. Though, since this video is an inevitability, I'm going to talk less about objective differences and similarities between the versions, and more about how it feels to play Skarner, or how it felt when we talk about the old one. Starting off with the most important feeling for me, the power you got from Old Skarner's passive and Qs. The short story is, it's still there, but elongate that story ever so slightly and it'll feel like we got scammed. You get attack speed while you're holding a rock with Q, but once you've thrown it, it's gone. We're already seemingly off to a bad start. However, not all is lost. The attack speed may only last 3 attacks, but since the cooldown starts the moment you pick up a rock, with good ability haste like on an item such as Spear of Shojin and Lucidity Boots, you can get rather high uptime on that attack speed. And with the Q area of effect and max health damage rock, the combination of Old Skarner's attack speed steroid and Q spam is almost kinda there. Add on the AD ratio, which has now been buffed, plus certain AD items like Titanic and the aforementioned Spear of Shojin, and ripping faces off of Skarner's Q with reckless abandon once again is in the cards for us. You won't be pressing Q as often, but you'll be doing those AoE attacks just as frequently directly on your auto attacks. And if the key press is what's important to you, there's a certain 2-in-1 cavalry deal just for you. Yeah, real subtle foreshadowing there, Anthony Reynolds. Of course, there is still a part of this old passive and old W that is missing, and that is the speed. Unfortunately, there is no more speed in Skarner's new kit, other than the set movement speed of E. I still wish that we could get his E to scale with movement speed like Nunu's W instead of having set speed like Cyan's R, but setting the speed at least means it's consistent and we won't be missing our targets all the time. Unless you're me. As a result though, you can feel miserably slow when your E is on cooldown, and though your slows help you keep up with escaping targets, Skarner is rather useless at escaping opponents where needed, which makes damage builds even riskier. I mentioned the slow, and I'll come back to that, but the next most important feeling with Old Skarner, other than his mash your face off close range combat, was his kidnapping potential, as people like to call it. Old Skarner would rush up to you with high speed, ult you, and drag you away just as fast. Even though Skarner's ult is nerfed in quite a few ways to make up for now being able to grab free champions, I think this feeling is still very much there, if only a tad bit more situational. Part of this kidnap combo is now on the E. Being able to flank or just dash straight towards a priority target is just as much part of this feeling as casting Skarner's ult is. Now, while it has counterplay in how it can be body blocked, dodged, and requires a wall for the stun and damage, the Old Skarner's equivalent counterplay was Ash W. Yeah, well, any kind of slow or CC actually. The new Skarner E helps you wade through softer CCs and reach targets with a burst of speed, and the guaranteed R after stunning someone in a wall is pretty satisfying to achieve, even more so with things like the Titanic Hydra Q combo slotted between the crowd controls. If anything, Skarner's E is his most fun ability. While it's pure utility and only has a HP ratio, it's also your quintessential gap closer that can suck to miss, but the feeling of actually landing a satisfying E through whatever wall flank route you found is nothing like what Old Skarner could do. Partially because he literally couldn't do it, but also, yeah, besides mashing faces and grabbing with R, Skarner didn't have much. The combo potential and fluidity of Skarner's new abilities with E is similar to the combos of Old Skarner's E and R, if now more varied due to, well, having more than 2 abilities relevant to your combo, leading to greater skill expression. Do you delay abilities for greater CC and slow duration, or do you burst everything with your E and R stun times? Skarner's abilities are just generally more dynamic, but he does now have something he's never had before, a reliance on abilities. Old Skarner's base AD, attack speed, and very low cooldown Qs meant that he was permanently threatening to be around, as his class, Juggernaut, should have been. Getting close to Skarner meant not only were you liable to be CC locked, dragged away, and eaten by his team, but he had a huge DPS potential to tear you asunder with damage so great it didn't matter if you were squishy or a Randuin's plated tank. His incessant percentage damage with 20 force procs would bash your armor with such fury that even metal would bleed! The low cooldown Ws and Es would keep his combat downtime low, the polar opposite of the rework. With no ability haste, the rework Skarner Q's comparably colossal cooldown means that any premature shot would leave you wanting and unsatisfied. Such limp DPS and significantly smaller AD numbers on new Skarner means that, with abilities on cooldown, you're just a wet noodle. Whereas Old Skarner kept his speed up with W and Spires, new Skarner can only move quickly in bursts, whenever his E is ready, and it has a pretty high cooldown. The W cooldown can get decently low to the point where there's no complaints about a lack of shielding, and the extra slow, other than causing this travesty, gives another layer of CC you can play with to ensnare prey. So I've gone from being really positive about it to giving endless negatives. What do I actually think about it? Well, It's so much better. I actually hated the previous Skarner so much. Let me cook. Obviously, I changed my tune on that eventually, but it took far more effort to like that rework of Skarner than it took to like this rework. That particular incarnation of Skarner seemed to take away a lot of his power and place it in these spires. At least that's how it felt. His early game felt painfully weak and I didn't quite understand how to play him. Before that, he had a more reliable stun and was overall a bit stronger. And before that, he didn't even have a stun, but instead was well known for his permanent slow, something that, 3 reworks later, he once again is capable of. It needs a lot of ability haste, but chaining together Qs and Ws can lead to a slow so sustained that it might as well be permanent, just like the original Skarner. And it was that Skarner that I initially liked so much. It seems with every rework of Skarner, I would have to spend a good amount of effort learning to like him again, and this one's no different. Honestly, the changes he has now feel like nothing compared to learning to use his spires, but that's honestly more because they were terrible. In recent videos where I say I'm starting to love new Skarner, some comments joked that the Stockholm Syndrome was finally setting in, but the irony about this is that that would apply so much more to Old Skarner. I practically forced myself to like the spire mechanic. No one fucking liked it. We coped like, oh yeah, he uses these now, as we cried that he can't win early game 1v1s in his precious spire. That's the false advertising that made him very confusing to learn. But when I realized that Juggernaut era Skarner was actually a late game hyper carry, I began to have a lot more fun. That part of him is still almost kinda not there, but at the very least he still has his percentage damage, and no matter how lazily tacked on his passive is, this keeps him at least relevant in the late game, and with attack speed, AD and ability haste, the constant Qs actually give him good late game potential. The moment I started using Spear of Shojin, and having played him enough to learn him a bit better, my overall attitude to new Skarner changed dramatically. As even before the current Q buffs, I felt like I was doing so much more damage with so much more sustained DPS. With Riot insisting that he's a tank and not a Juggernaut, it eclipses his potential in this regard, but at least we can still somewhat work with it, and the Q buffs will hopefully help that a lot. Speaking of buffs and updates, there's been some new developments after I originally wrote this video. First of all, Riot rolled out a hotfix to Skarner after these Q changes, and I might be on my own here, but in my opinion they're going in the right direction. The hotfix kept all of his AD ratios the same, as well as the percentage max HP damage on Q, but nerfed his base damage and more importantly his health scaling on his ability damage. There was also a hit to his passive magic damage. I think this is good, because I think if a champion wants to deal damage they should build it, and if it's max health damage to be nerfed, then whereas the passive magic damage effectively cannot miss, then keeping the high damage on the Q that can be played around in some instances is the right place to keep it. I also just disagree that a champion should deal high damage while building full tank, as it creates a boring lack of item variety for the champion and an even more boring time playing against them that can just feel unfair and unfun. The W damage nerfs seem to discourage maxing it in the top lane and make that less oppressive, but it's overall an insignificant hit to his damage late game. Furthermore, there are potential nerfs on the PBE as well, nerfing Q base damage late game, which I don't think is supposed to discourage you from maxing that, unlike the W, but perhaps they think he's too strong at dealing with squishies, which I find weird but at least gives me incentive to keep building AD. The mana regen increase means he gets more mana regen late game, which is a weird trade, but now you can throw more rocks in ARAM situations, so go, Lethality Skarner! And the weirdest change is lowering the W slow. I don't mind this, since the 30% slow of MFE always feels like 80% to me, but it just feels a bit unclear what Riot wants from this. Skarner isn't that hard to escape for most modern champions, so this just encourages throwing rocks instead of hitting all 3 Qs, using the W slow to secure them, and that in turn reduces his damage potential. Considering they chose to make his W this huge, kinda makes sense. I wouldn't mind if the W size was just halved with a higher slow power, given how Skarner's gameplay pattern is supposed to play, and would probably be the easiest way to end the Comet and Leandry's cheating playstyles Riot seems to half hate. Lowering the base values that made Skarner more like a tank seems to push him closer to the Juggernaut tag, which Riot insists he isn't, and it's giving me mixed signals, but so long as I can rush Lucid Boots, Shojin and a Titanic and have fun, I guess it's okay by me. But I'd be happy if they just said, fuck it, and re-Juggernauted our boy. That aside, I think new Skarner's fun with or without these changes. For me, at least. I know old Skarner fans might not want to give the new one too many chances with how different he is at first glance, and I won't kid you, he is very different from the Skarner we knew and loved, but I'd argue that quite a lot of what we liked is still there if you're willing to bend your build a bit. Please, try building Spirit of Shojin, Lucidity Boots, and Max and Q. Stop with this comet of cope and spam out those Qs like it's 2023. I think it's okay to have a preference, as honestly I still prefer the old one, but I also stopped picking him over time, as it was just so unsatisfying to never be able to get a good engage due to just how easily countered and kited Old Skarner's run up and press R initiation method was. If anything, this rework inadvertently opens his build up a bit by giving him a solution to engages other than Dead Man's Plate and full tank. I'll double down on what I said before. This isn't an Aatrox rework. Even if I feared that at first, he's more than fine. He's a good rework if anything, and though I was afraid I would stop playing Skarner completely if he was too different, I'm pleasantly surprised to say I'll be keeping Skarner within my champion roster. I find him stupidly fun now, and he's able to at least come close to the highs of Old Skarner, who I was slowly losing interest in as the metas shifted. Still though, give the guy a traditional skin, the crystal theme was cool. But now I'll say thank you for watching. Since I'll be playing so much more of him, be sure to follow us on Twitch and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you like. It's also going to be an absolute blast playing him on Arena, so I hope you'll look forward to that too. One more time, thank you for watching. Shoutouts to the members, AJBeat91, War Squid, Ultimate Ground, my dad, Gentleman Zeta, Lunar Eagle 1996, 53rd Alabama Booty Obi-Wan Kenobi, AC Immortal, Mr. Noodle, Bass1378, New Vegas Enjoyer, Gilbert Morals, and Edgardo Anati. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, and thank you to the new members for joining.